Good evening, everyone, and welcome to SocialFlight Live. I'm Jeff Simon. We have a fantastic show for you this evening. Dave Hall, the man behind MotoArt and PlaneTags, is here, and we're going to hear all about that. It's going to be an awful lot of fun as we ramp up for AirVenture. Now, just a few things. First of all, SocialFlight's Fly to Win Challenge is just red hot. We are giving away an Aspen E5 electronic flight instrument, glass for your aircraft. And all you need to do is get the free SocialFlight mobile app. Just check in at your local airport and you are entered to win. In addition to that, you can go and check in wherever you fly, get more points, get on our leaderboard. You have an extra entry in the contest in order to win. And so it's just a great opportunity to have a fantastic instrument that we actually use in our Titan Mustang, in our Bonanza. Absolutely love Aspen's products. So be sure to check that out. And we just gave away a Lightspeed Zulu 3 headset as well. So all sorts of things. We just keep rolling and rolling with all of these gifts. In addition to that, of course, we will be out next week at AirVenture. So if any of you are going to be at AirVenture, we are running our Snag Some Swag challenge that we do, where we are just randomly going to be around the show. We will be at different partners. If you see any of the partners here on this sign behind me, go visit them. Ask when we've been around. We will be spending some time at them. And if you swing by, we bump into you. If we still have some swag for that day left, then you'll get some. So all sorts of cool things that we have to give away. So come grab us there at AirVenture, and I'm so looking forward to meeting all of you, and I'll be there with Jake and Ben as well. Tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Bose Aviation and the new AV30. It is really something you've got to check out. It's, if you thought the AV20 was state of the art, then you've got to check out the AV30. All digital, all these new features. It is lighter. It's just amazing. So much less clamping force on your head. It's a joy to fly with. So be sure to check that out. And of course, we exist here at SocialFlight because of those folks. So please, please, if you ever reach out to any of those sponsors, just thank them for what they do to make all of this possible. Now, on to tonight's guest. Dave Hall has never flown an airplane and doesn't have his pilot's license, but if you spend a few minutes with him, you'd think otherwise, because his life is literally surrounded by aircraft and aviation history. Dave co-founded MotoArt, creating some of the most iconic aviation furniture and art pieces in the world. The adventures of launching MotoArt was even featured in the Discovery Channel series Wingnuts, which is a spectacular and engaging reality TV classic. Totally worth checking out. If you haven't seen it, jump on YouTube after the show and take a look for yourself. It's really, really engaging and a lot of fun to get a look back at the launching of MotoArt. Always innovating, Dave went on to expand the business and make his fashion accessible to everyone through PlaneTags, where you can get your own piece of aviation history in the palm of your hand. Every piece, every tag has a story, whether it's MotoArt or PlaneTags, and we are going to hear all sorts of ones tonight here and stories. I'm going to bring Dave on the line now. Please help me welcome to SocialFlight Live, Dave Hall. How are you doing, Dave?
Good, Jeff. Thank you for having me. Wow, what a roundup you put there in front of me. I hope I am entertaining and keep the conversation going for you here tonight.
Hey, you know what? You can't do anything else when it comes to like what the actual story is. Your story is so fascinating that, I mean, you could literally answer everything only factually and it would be riveting.
Right. Well, it's been 23 years now, so you know the memory gets a little foggy, but it seems like that's all I remember now is just MotoArt, and it started on a whim. It was a hobby that spun out of control, and here we are 23 years later, still kicking out the hits, and there's no end in sight. So we're all having a lot of fun. It's not just me. We have an incredible team here of almost 26 people that work here every day. I'm happy to be surrounded by talented people to make all this possible.
So tell me that story, because first of all, I will say, there are people that are entrepreneurs, self-starters, creative people that are always searching for that hit, that one thing that's going to be their passion and be successful. You're someone that has had two. So, well, you've probably had more than that, to be honest, but I'm only intimately familiar with two of them. And so let's start with MotoArt.
Well, when I started MotoArt, I came from a sales and marketing background, and met my old partner at a architectural sign company. And it was an incredible company. We were here in Los Angeles. We were working for all the major theme entertainment companies, Disney, Universal Studios. We were doing stadium work. And I was like a kid in a candy store because it was these huge, beautiful graphics packages were coming across my desk every day. And then one day, everything changed. One day we had a scrap aluminum guy came by our yard and he had an old beat up propeller. And my partner, Donovan, who was my estimator at the time, rescued it. And he had worked on it and created our first piece, which was a propeller sculpture. And that's where it started. I'd walk in his office. I'm like, Donovan, this is stunning. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to take it up to the Rose Bowl swap meet and sell it this weekend. And that's what he did. He went up to the Rose Bowl swap meet and he sold that sucker for like $1,000. And he came back and he goes, I can't believe someone bought it and it's $1,000. I'm like, $1,000? I'm like, Donovan, you worked on that thing for like 100 hours. And so that's where the idea was to start a business. I said, look, let's take these sculptures and let's go to the Barrett-Jackson show in Scottsdale, Arizona and sell all these. So that's exactly what we did. We set out and we made 6 of these sculptures. We sat in my garage up in Redondo Beach, sanding these propellers all day and night, and took them to the Barrett-Jackson show, and we sold every single one of them. And we called ourselves Propeller Art. And that's all we had were propellers. And really what we saw was the attraction of what we're doing. They were almost like human lures. They're beautiful and shiny and bright, and everyone who walked by our booth was gravitated towards these sculptures. And what really packed the punch was the aviation history that contained with what we were working with. And that's where my eyes opened up and said, look, no one's doing what we're doing. And we went out to breakfast one morning and we started penciling literally on the napkin. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous. That's how businesses start. It literally started on a napkin, where we started like, hey, let's take a wing and make a desk out of it. And we'll take a galley cart and we'll make it into a bar. And let's put a piece of glass around the sculpture and we'll make it functional. And so that's where the light bulb went off. And at the same time, I had all these beautiful, we had no money. I mean, absolutely no money at all. But I was reading, a magazine. It was actually a Maxim magazine, and back in the Maxim, it was what's hot and what's new. They had these little itty bitty editorials in the back. And I'm like, what do you bet these guys would dig these propeller sculptures we're doing? So I photographed them. I worked with a graphic designer, and we created a package, and I took the top 8 editors of Maxim magazine. I sent them all the same package, hoping to create water cooler talk, and they called. They said, this is awesome. These sculptures are beautiful. What else can you come up with? And of course, I'd rattle off, we can do a wing desk, and we do a galley cart, and we can do this. Great. Come to New York. We're going to give you 2 pages of Maxim magazine. This is back in 2002 when magazines were all the talk. And that's what we did. And that was the launch pad of MotoArt back in 2002. And away we went. And it was just, at that point, editorial after editorial after editorial. And we learned the game, where we make something new, you photograph it, and then you send it out to all the magazines, and they would write about it, right? Because they were looking for eye candy to put in their magazines. So it was a great little formula that Donovan and I had, where we were introducing brand new designs using vintage aircraft in our artwork to create conversational pieces.
Wow.
That's how it started.
When you first did Maxim, other than the propellers, were you just telling them ideas, or did you actually have those pieces at that time?
No, literally just telling them ideas. I was basing it on that breakfast I had with a napkin. No, we had very limited. I mean, we just literally had the propeller sculptures, and MotoArt, it really wasn't a name yet. We chose MotoArt because the domain was open. We wanted it to be a name that would that we could do any type of industrial art, right? We wanted to do trains, we wanted to do planes, we want to do auto. And that's why we chose MotoArt, and it stuck. And of course, all these years later, you can see basically we're in the aviation industry, and that's where we found our niche, and that's what we love doing.
Now, okay, so you're back there and you pitch things like a desk, et cetera, that you haven't actually done before, but this can't be easy to actually take something that you had this great idea for and then realize what does it take to take the structure of, let's say, an elevator and make it presentable and then support it to turn it into a desk and answer all these questions about how does this actually all work.
Right.
What was that like when you had to deal with, because art has to meet practicality at some point, right?
Kind of make it up as you go along kind of thing. You know, we wooed them with the propellers. You know, we actually had our first functional piece in the submittal, which was what we call the DC3 Martini table, which is a toothpick DC3 propeller that we put 3/4 inch green glass surrounded with a C-130 propeller gear dome. Beautiful piece. So it had functionality to it, and then along with the other sculptures, it was a really, you knocked it out in left field submittal. You know, we made sure when I sent the submittal in, I sent to all 8 editors, that before you even opened up the envelope, you knew there was something special on it. I mean, I laid out everything I could to get these guys to open it and create water cooler talk amongst all the editors. And it was Charles Cox, the senior editor, who called me. And I remember I was so nervous taking that phone call. I didn't even write down his name, number, or anything. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Hung up the phone. And the next week was the most agonizing week, waiting for that phone to ring again, or an email or something. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't write his information down. Well, they called and they said, great, hey, come to New York. We'll see you guys in 2 months. Go ahead and create what you can create. And that's what we did. We set out, went to the local boneyard up in El Mirage, up in Mojave, and started just taking parts and started working with them to get enough to create about 5 pieces. You know, we took a galley cart, an old drink cart, put some diamond plate on it, we put a sound system and some speakers on it, you know, so you could walk around with a battery pack. We took a DC-9 stabilizers, and we got some rocket ducting. It was really a funky looking piece for the legs. We had that DC-3 Martini table. We had a Lockheed Constellation propeller sculpture. Oh, and then Donovan's piece, which was magnificent. We had something called the Get Bomb table, which was a World War II practice bomb that we put a B-52 stator around it, and then we made it so you could open it up and there's an ice bucket. And we called it the Get Bomb table. So they thought that was a hoot. And what that did, Jeff, is it came out, and we thought we were going to be millionaires overnight, right? We're like, oh my God, Maxim magazine has a readership of 3 million people, blah, blah, blah. We're going to be millionaires. And what we didn't realize was it really wasn't our demographic. Of course, everyone loved it, but you know, when you're spending 100 hours on something, you're not giving it away. You're charging thousands and thousands of dollars. And that was one of the things that Maxim kind of poked fun with. Hey, poked fun with was, fly mile high with mile high prices, and you realize the demographic of Maxim magazine was 23, 24 years old, right? So when it came out, what it did, it created a snowball effect from other publicity magazines, Men's Journal, Architectural Digest, all of them started calling us, and we just had this huge snowball of publicity for the first year of MotoArt, and that's really what gave us the feat to keep the business going, was through the PR. And then, as you mentioned,
yeah, I mean, they're aspirational, right? I mean, that's really what it is. You've got these like aspirational pieces. It's almost like the old days of FAO Schwartz, and they'd have like one big thing at the end, like, and your kid could be driving along in a model of a Rolls Royce,
Right. And what it was, and then finally, it was, and you mentioned, it was Discovery Channel that came around in like late 2003, said this is fantastic. You guys got something here. Do you want to do a TV series? And of course, the answer to that is yes. And this is very early on with the reality TV. Reality TV was pretty new at the time. And here we were, 2 years in business, we had our own reality TV show, and it was art versus commerce. And that was the whole premise of the company. Having a great idea, but taking that great idea and taking it to the market and, making a living off of it. and which is not easy to do. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, you know, in the early days of MotoArt, the struggle of keeping the business alive and keeping it going and believing what you're doing and what you're doing is a good thing, and the hard work will eventually pay off. So.
Wow. And so they found you. Discovery came to you for that series?
Yeah, that's another story. My partner was watching Orange County Choppers and was very early on and saw that and said, we can do a TV show. And I thought he was full of crap. And before you know it, we contacted someone who was in the industry. And long story short, it took within days, we had a signed deal with Discovery. And gave us 3 one-hour episodes to start. They saw the craziness of what we had going on. They gave us another 5 episodes, and after we got done filming the 8 episodes, we started negotiating the second season. And unfortunately, it ended tragically where my TV partner, a guy named Tim Roberts, fell over dead. And in the middle of the night, 39 years old, you know, got that 5 a.m. wake-up call that you never want to get, that Tim had passed away in the middle of the night. So, you know, while we were at the top of our game with Discovery Channel and being the primetime show, we had lost our good friend, and things went pretty dark after that for the next few months. So it was definitely a tough time.
Wow. What was your experience with those days of reality TV? How much of that was real and like, were things scripted at all, or what was that like?
No, you know, we knew the beginning and we knew the middle and we knew the ending. That was the recipe. You know, you had 2 weeks, basically 2 to 3 weeks to film a 1-hour episode. You know, it was really up to us to create the plot line. You know, they'd call me and say, okay, hey, what's the next episode? I'm like, okay, let's go find bombs. Let's go, you know, cut up a wing in Roswell. And, you know, well, we'll sell it to this guy. So we'll know basically the premise. But, you know, what you really end up doing is you're working for the cameras, right? I always say, be careful what you're wishing for. It's really a hyped parallel reality of really what's going on in your life. So when you watch that 1-hour episode, you think you know everything that's going on. But what you don't realize is, you know, we just filmed 2-3 weeks for that 1-hour episode, and the editors are slicing and dicing the story they want to tell. You know, and I can't tell you countless times, you know, we get done filming an episode, or, you know, you're doing the block of days of filming an episode and high-fiving each other, like, that was a great show. And then we watched it, and it was about, you know, the divorce, the fight, the drama, you know, and they left out all the real parts of what we do for day to day. And so reality TV, they really look for that drama, and they really do the best they can to poke it out of you while you're filming. And, you know, and I always say, be careful what you wish for. You know, if you want to sell a bunch of t-shirts, you know, reality TV might be your thing, but you really want to run a business like what we're doing, extremely difficult to do with reality TV, right? Because the production comes first, the business comes second. And they tell you that every day. Look, just do the production, business will follow, right? So while you're working in front of those cameras for what I think we did 6-7 months for those 8 episodes, you know, that's all you did was work for the cameras. It was very nerve-wracking. You know, I'd go to Home Depot and I had 6 people follow me with cameras. You know, I was a nobody, you know, and you know, and when it came to air, the you know, the notoriety they gave us is, again, be careful what you wish for. You know, I couldn't imagine being, you know, a big celebrity like Harrison Ford or something where you're walking around and everyone knows who you are. You know,
yeah.
It's kind of a tricky situation. Glad I did it. I really am. I'm happy I did it, but I'm not sure if I'd want to revisit any time in the near future.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. We've had, you know, Mikey on with Buffalo. I've had Ariel Tweedo on the show. They all were part of those, you know, reality series, and it is a challenge because they're all businesses. They're all running business, and then you invite that into your life, and it becomes a lot about how can we create drama, how can we create conflict, how can we tell a story about what's going on.
Right. It's for ratings. You know, they want the drama, and so
yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
So back to the pieces, back to the MotoArt, back to this stuff. So you start coming out with some of these things. Take me through, and I'll bring up a couple of the pictures. Take me through the process, whether it's early on or a little bit later, that that you go through to get a piece, to find the core of what you're looking to work on, and then how to turn something that, you know, we all see as mechanics in the field. These things, as they're produced for their purpose, are not pretty
Right.
and are not perfect in any way, and all the other things around it. Tell me a little bit about how you find it, how you make it, how do you actually turn it into something gleaming that someone wants in their office and is
Right.
straight.
Yeah. You know, the real trick for us was, and we learned this early on, is whatever you introduce has to be a series, right? You can't really get too many one-of-a-kind pieces out there. When you sit there
Right.
and focus on one-of-a-kind pieces, you're not going to be able to create what we create, right? Because by the time you make it, you know, you got to photograph it, you got to market it, and if you only have one of them, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, what happens when you sell it? You're running around trying to find something that you kind of like it, you know? So the trick was find things that we had access to, things that we would have multiples of, and it was pretty easy, you know, in the get-go. You know, the DC9s were coming off the line. Well, they have beautiful T-tails, and those T-tails were very thin, you know, where you cut them and perfect for making a desk out of. Or the engine cowlings, taking a 747 or 727 and, you know, flipping it on its side and cutting it and making a little reception desk out of it. Galley carts, well, that's a no-brainer. You know, there's hundreds and hundreds of galley carts. You know, creating a kind of a fun bar out of it. So we'd really go and focus on things that we found. Now, you know, commercial aviation, as I say, it's a dime a dozen. You know, there's so many planes coming off the line right now. You know, we've sliced and diced these things 100 different ways to create the different pieces of art we do, but we're always looking for, you know, unique things, you know, like we might be at an aircraft auction, you know, where it might be, you know, Hawkins and Power, you know, up in Graybull, Wyoming. You know, we bought a lot of material there, a lot of C-119 material, a lot of C-130 flaps, you know, stuff that was used to back up their, you know, their flying aircraft. So we'd go and buy stuff in lots. Hey, look, C-130 flaps. Well, geez, we can, you know, get 20 of these flaps. Let's make that conference table, you know. So we'd go and get one and polish it up and make it beautiful and photograph it, and then boom, that would be a line. You know, another place that we went that was worth talking was back in Tucson. You know, back when we first started this, back in 2001 and 2002, Tucson was a whole different game. Because back in the day, you could go and they had like these little miniature boneyards set up around Davis-Monthan, and you could go and literally buy B-52 ejection seats. You could buy F-4 ejection seats. You could buy whatever you want. And there was a company called National Aircraft down there, and I'm still friends with the guy who used to run it, who's got to be 90 by this point. But when we started going there, he kept telling me, he goes, Dave, see this big yard? And this yard, I mean, it was mountains of airplane parts. He goes, this is going to be a dirt lot in 3 years. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? He goes, yep, the laws have changed. And this was around the time where the Stop Arming Iran Act got signed in place, where people got caught selling F-14 parts to Iran. Well, the Homeland Security ran in and really became hands off. No civilians were allowed to own anything military at that point. So National Aircraft, who we were buying parts from, they were getting no new material in, right? So they were no longer getting material off Davis-Monthan. So what they had at that point was just a dying business. So I took a loan from a good friend of mine and went out there and bought like 50 F-4 ejection seats. I bought a bunch of B-52 ejection seats. We bought some F-4 burner cans. We bought, you know, C-124 cargo floors. I mean, we bought as much as we could, knowing that this company was going out of business.
Wow.
And you know, when I promote that I have F-4 ejection seats or I have B-52 ejection seats, it's from National Aircraft from back in the day. And just as he said, 3 years later, National Aircraft is now a dirt lot, no longer exists. So nothing's coming out of Davis-Monthan anymore. So
That's
I hope
crazy.
that answered that in a long.
No, it's true. You know, I want to show a couple of things here so that people have a sense of what some of these pieces are, because this almost might be one of the most dramatic ones that you do.
Well, you got to realize that looks so small there. That is a gigantic piece. That's a 11-foot diameter glass top that comes off of a 747, and that's a conference table. Yeah, there you see some chairs around it. That actually got in Wrigley's Believe It or Not as the most unique conference table. I got the copy. I couldn't believe that they picked that. But we've only made probably about 6 of those. But again, we picked that one because we knew we can get 747 engine cowlings. And that was we took the time to professionally photograph it and video it. And so we were able to sell more than just one.
Right, yeah, and then you basically come up with a formula. Here's how you're making all the different parts of it and the process for it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we create templates and the whole thing. Now, that piece there, probably about 250 hours in it. So,
Wow.
And another thing to notice there, you see how it's an all aluminum cowling? Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's a thing of the past too. That came off the 747-200s.
Yeah.
And we learned the hard way. We went back up to Mojave one day to go get a new 747 because it's kind of our bread and butter, these cowlings. And we realized it was composite.
That's pretty hard to polish.
Right. So the days of all aluminum cowlings are coming to an end because they just, they weaned them out. So, now we're dealing with a lot of composite aircraft, a whole nother story. But
Right.
that's truly a stunning piece, a 747-200, all aluminum, and it just takes a monster amount of time to polish that out.
How do you handle I mean, I would imagine that not only are you polishing it out, but that they are far from perfect.
Yes.
I mean, aren't you dealing with dents and scratches and all sorts of, problems? I mean, when
Right.
someone goes, if they're going to spend big money and get something that's this corner thing, I doubt in their mind they're expecting that chair number 4 has a dent in it,
Right. Right. We have a famous saying around here, Jeff. It is what it is. Right.
And that's what you educate your customers with?
Yeah, that aircraft flew around the world 50 times, if not more. That is a beauty mark.
So the answer is they have to live with it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we disclaim that. I mean, my proposal, I had a little disclaimer in my proposals, that imperfections are part of the game that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
There's another one. There's that's a DC-9 or an MD-80. One of our original designs that we streamlined with a new leg design. For a long time, we weren't using a glass top, and then we had so many requests because the pencils were rolling off that we created a glass top. But to give you an idea, we probably sold 350 of those in the last 20 years. I mean, it's been a pretty regular staple piece that we do. And again, we chose the DC-9 and the MD-80s because they were coming off the line. We had access to them. They were thin enough that you can get your legs underneath them. So that's been a real staple of MotoArt for the last 20 years.
Wow. So that's a good example, and I'm guessing here that one is a little less exotic in terms of, or a little more obtainable for.
Well, God, I hate to tell you. Look, you got to realize before we even pick up a tool, Jeff, we're into that thing for thousands of dollars, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't mean like price. I just meant like the other things seem like that big table seems like almost one of a kind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could put in your home office. You might be able to talk the wife into that one.
When you talk about office, I want to show people what your studio looks like a little bit here, because this is your office, your business. I mean, this is the most amazing aircraft den, hangar space, anything you want to call it.
Right.
Man cave for aviation.
Yeah, thank you.
This is take me through some of the stuff that we're looking at.
Well, the back wall, you see the United States Marine, that's actually, I filled it up with my plane tags, but that is actually a C-119 flying boxcar. What's funny is the other side of that half is Bob Parsons from GoDaddy has it. We contracted and commissioned us to build him a conference table. He was a big time Marine, and I'm sure you guys might know Bob Parsons from GoDaddy is. And so he commissioned us to go out and find the C-119 and cut up and make him a conference table. And so what you're seeing here is the other side. I took the other side and kept it and made one side into a conference table for him.
That's awesome.
The above you hanging is a practice drone that I found out in Colorado. It did have a little engine on the front of it, but I stuck a little nose cone on it. On a back wall, you see the little gray chairs, the red outline. Those are navigator chairs from the 707. And the pool table is just a beautiful. Oh, the bar itself, which is what I'm sitting at right now, that's made out of fuselage off a Boeing aircraft. You can kind of see the cowling on the top left. That's off of the B-52. So yeah.
I'll switch to some others here that you've got, because the artwork is just stunning.
Thank you. Here you're walking in, this is our entryway. We got some burner cans. That's what ignites the fuel in the jet engine, where we powder coated them and made them into lights. You got a water jet cut Continental radial engine hanging on the wall there with some bomb tail fins in the entryway.
You guys do all that yourself, all your own water jet cutting, all the other stuff?
No, we send out water jetting. We send out powder coating and water jetting glass. I mean, we have our capabilities here. We got our, a couple metal shops. We got a wood shop. We got a sanding and polishing department. And now that I've started PlaneTags, I've basically separated the company. And so we got one side that's kind of PlaneTags and one side is MotoArt.
Yeah. I love this. I love because to me, there's nothing more iconic for kind of like the glory days of at least modern air travel than the Boeing staircase for a 747.
Yeah, that came off of a 747-100. Those are so extremely hard to find. I've only found two, well, three. One of them was destroyed. That probably could be redone, but that's one of the ones I had. I was gonna make myself a loft up there, but decided not to. And that's why I started. And then I have one in the back of the shop that we have not dressed it up. But yeah, very iconic. You see that and you immediately know almost where that came from. And then the back wall, that's C-124 cargo flooring that you see there. And there's my wall of different cowlings. I got B-52, a couple F-86s. I got a TBM Avenger there, F-16, F-80. So there's my, and then dear to me is the propeller in the back. I'm not sure if you see it in that propeller in the back, but that's all of our signatures of some of the aviation legends, including Louis Zamperini and Richard Branson and Harrison Ford. Elon Musk, he came here and he signed it for me. Look, you can even see my Berlin Wall. I got a piece of the Berlin Wall sitting there. I love that one.
That's really, really impressive. So tell me, let's go back in. What's the process? So you guys go out and you go out to a scrapyard. There's obviously a big team or at least a team, right, of folks. You can't just no one's handing you these pieces.
Right. Well, yeah, with the team, like right now, this is our boneyard. So we have about an acre of land in Mojave, what you're showing them. And you can see we've got working on a B-52 that we cherry pick off of. There's a PBY sitting next to it that was donated to us by the Pima Air and Space Museum. I had a DC-7, a P-2. But behind you, you'll see all the airframe parts. I mean, that yard is packed with thousands and thousands of airframes that we spent the last 22 years just collecting at auctions or stuff that people were throwing away or, just trying to give it another life. Probably more than I probably should have. I'm scratching my head what we're going to do with it all. But yeah, that's our yard there.
And that includes all these ejection seats.
Right, that part of that national aircraft story I was telling you about, all those B-52 chairs. What sold out were the F4. We had the F4s, which were bucket seats, and we had just a ton of those, but those all sold out. Here, a lot of Beech 18 parts. Anyone has any need for Beech 18 parts, I got them.
So you're putting that out there for everybody at
yeah. I mean,
Matt Duncan and his crew.
Right. Anyone needs a Beech 18 part, please call me. I'd love to donate it to you if you got a project in the works. But again, that would be kind of an affordable coffee table or a desk that we offer. That was something that we didn't necessarily take off a plane. Anytime we go to a plane and have to cut it off, and the prices just start escalating. And these are things that we have found in auctions and stuff that were just kind of derelict parts. These are all skeletal airframes. We make conference tables out of those and desks. Mostly those are like C-119, stuff that just doesn't fly anymore, you know, E4s. So a lot of stuff that just has no use, but we don't want to see it destroyed, because it's destroyed, and when it's gone, right? There's just no bringing it back.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, tell me a little bit about that process. So if I show another one here, which is really, really gorgeous. I mean, how do you go to turn something from what we saw in the scrapyard into something like this?
Well, I got to tell you, you picked one of the easiest ones. Getting back to the C-119, there you are. You have your vertical rudder there. You know, at one time they had a cloth covering. We picked this up at an auction because, you know, there's just no use really for the C-119 flying boxcar anymore. And this was powder coated, like a granny apple green, 1/2-inch tempered glass. It was cut in the shape of the airframe. The
do you
base.
have to do a lot of prep? I mean, what kind of prep work before you can do it? Does it take a lot?
I gotta tell you, you're picking one of the easiest ones that we have. That's actually one that's relatively easy. What's difficult about this, Jeff, is they're so banged up. So we'll spend a week trying to get as many of the dents out of it and trying to make it straight. You know, there's a reason why it was taken off at one point. It was, you know, not a good rudder. Now we put not diamond plate. We put like a turn aluminum laminate up underneath it to give it kind of oomph, but this one doesn't have it. But the base is done. We use a bamboo hardwood on our bases and stain them black.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty
that
piece.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about something like this?
This, very common. We make a lot of these. This is our fuselage conference tables. We do those out of desks. I mean, look, for the longest time, we didn't work with windows, and I kept bugging my old partner. I'm like, look, this is the one common denominator of these windows. We got endless windows. So I finally sold a job for a company called 19 Entertainment here out of Los Angeles. 19 Entertainment, just a name drop. They're the ones who started American Idol, and they had their offices at the old Playboy building here in Los Angeles on Sunset Boulevard. And I sold them on the idea of just creating walls of fuselage for the cubicles. They wanted to hide the cubicles that they had in this open floor plan. So I sold them the idea of using all these fuselage windows to hide all the cubicles. And at that point, we really started working with more fuselage. We started doing conference tables and desks and bookshelves, and even like the picture frames that now you see they're so popular that people are using. But yeah, that one, and it was shown, Jeff, that was shown in our satin finish. We offer in both mirror polish finishes and satin finishes. That was a good example of the satin finish.
Yeah, I do like, there's so much that you can do with the sides of aircraft and turning them into just amazing things.
That one's an all mirror polish finish. Again, here you got the fuselage up in the wall, mirror polish finish. That's a DC-9 stabilizer that we made into a coffee table.
Wow. And then last one I'll show real quick here. That's always, I think, again, kind of iconic is the ones where it's kind of the entryway to anything, and you take an entire engine nacelle and turn it into your reception area.
Isn't that stunning? I mean, again, there's that 747-200. It's a dying breed. I mean, if you want one, call us. I mean, we're down. I kid you not, we're down to like maybe the last 6 that I've earmarked, and outside that, we start going into composite, which changes everything.
Wow.
Right now, we're working on Jeff, really kind of a cool one. We're working on a 777 cowling. It's an information booth for an airport, and this is actually kind of a funny story. Do you mind if I tell you a quick story?
Go. That's why
I have an airport that wanted this information booth, and they wanted it big and grand, and I can't name drop on the airport yet, but because we signed an NDA, but they wanted this 777 cowling, and up in Mojave, there's, you know, it used to be this, when I first started 20 years ago, it was all L1011s, and now it's all 747s, right? All the L1011s are gone. All the 747s, now they're getting cut up. But what's now replacing that are the 777s. So now you're starting to see a lot of 777s coming in. And I've been, we have a good old boy deal up there. I've been doing business in Mojave for 20 years. We're really kind of part of the whole scenery up there at this point. And I convinced this airport, let's do a 777 county. These things are massive. Yeah, they all love the idea. So I sold the idea. It gets spec'd in. Now they pull the trigger. It's a green light. Go get the 777 counting. Let's start on this project. And I went up to Mojave and I'm like, hey, I need one of those 777 cowlings. And they're like, did we have a conversation about this? I'm like, well, no, I've been buying 747 cowlings from you for 20 years. He goes, yeah, but these are the 777s. They just came off the line. Dave, do you realize the resale value of a 777 cowling? And I'm like, 10 grand? No, try like 100 grand. And so I'm like, oh no, I got it totally spec'd into this airport. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna eat a shit sandwich on this one. You guys gotta help me. So I went back to the airport and I had to break them the bad news. And we did get a change order to help compensate some of the costs. But long story short, we were able to get a good price on it. And now we have a 777 cowling on the shop floor. It's our first one, and this thing is gigantic. We can't wait to, but it's composite. It's not aluminum, it's composite. You had a mirror polished leading edge. So
wow. Now you've done pieces for some pretty famous people. I know you don't like to name drop, but I'm gonna do it for you because I know that you're represented in Tom Cruise world.
Yeah, Mr. C. Yeah, and I don't like to name drop.
I'm gonna make you do it.
I have a lot of respect for Mr. Cruise, Tom Cruise. Well, we dealt with the Church of Scientology. Now, this wasn't yesterday. This was 10, 12 years ago. But we did have a pretty good relationship with the Church of Scientology, who was actually working the deal for Tom. He had his new hangar at the time up in Burbank, and they wanted to dress it up with all sorts of fun stuff. And I can't really get into a lot of it, but the thrill, of course, of me being much younger man back in the day to actually have the privilege to work with the group, and I was so giddy about it. I actually printed an 8x10 picture of me and my partner, and I autographed it. And I sent it to him with a MotoArt T-shirt, and I laughed about that all night long. That I sent him an autographed picture of me. And I was fortunate enough to spend a little time with them. I saw them at the National Aviation Hall of Fame. The Living Legends of Aviation. And it was a black tie event, and I had a chance to meet him and take pictures with him. And he thanked me and said he was just blown away by our work, and he treasured it. And I gotta tell you, I think he's a badass. I think he's a great actor, and I was honored to have a chance to work with him. But again, the only reason we're bringing up Tom Cruise is because he's in the news right now. The new Mission Impossible. I can't wait to go out and see it. And it was an honor to be able to work with him for the time we did.
That's awesome. Anyone else come top of your head that people would know from movies, etc.? Obviously, I'm sure there's tons of regular wealth and heads of companies, but any big things?
I'd much rather talk about the companies. I think it's well, I think it's notable. I mean, look, we're dealing with Rolls-Royce and Pratt & Whitney and Boeing and AOL and GoDaddy and NetJets, General Electric, FedEx. These are who our clients are for MotoArt. And that's what we learned that a long time ago, Jeff, is our clients aren't you and I. I mean, I can't afford my stuff, right? I mean, if I was going to aim for the average guy and make an average desk for everyone to afford, I wouldn't be in business right now. I mean, as I told you earlier, the rule of thumb, before we can cut that stabilizer off that desk and bring it in our shop, we're gonna do it for thousands of dollars. So we carved our niche in the corporate world. We make conference tables, we make reception desks, we make executive desks for the CEOs. I can tell you some funny stories about working for some of these companies, but that's where the PlaneTags came from, right?
Right.
Like you and I can't afford the stuff. Don't mean to throw you under the bus. I'm speaking for myself, but and we had a pretty great built-in audience from Wingnuts and all the publicity. We had this great email campaign that we're doing, showcasing all the new stuff from MotoArt, and everyone was like, "What's next? What's next?" Right? Well, I was toying around with some old skin one time, and I came up with the idea of PlaneTags, and it was a P51, and I stamped it, and I'm like, yeah, instead of a dog tag, I'm going to call this a plane tag. And this was like back in 2008 or 2009, a long time ago. And that sucker sat in my pocket for years, and I never pulled the trigger on it. And it wasn't until 2015 that I introduced it as a Black Friday special. And I picked like 6 different tags, 6 different aircraft, like a DC-3, B-25, a DC-9, an A-320, very generic looking packaging, and came out with it. And it was an incredible response. I had this audience that was following the craziness of MotoArt through all these years, just wanting to see what we're going to do next. And here it was. It was a $25,
and all of a sudden they can buy it.
$25 item everyone can afford, right? And away it went.
So grab something interesting from behind you. Show me something rare or something unique from this. That's your wall of PlaneTags fame.
Yeah, this is I try to keep numbers 1 through 10 personally. You know, number 1 for me, number 2 for my daughter, number 3 for my son, number 4 from my significant other, Yvonne, who helps me here at company. And that's not an easy task to do, because, you know, a lot of times we're dealing with manufacturers who are like, no, we want number 1. But to give you some ideas, what would be a fun one here? Okay, this is kind of fun. This is a Boeing 720. Now, what makes this unique is this Boeing 720 belonged to Ethiopian Airlines back in the 70s, and it was hijacked in like 1972. It was hijacked, and they had like 6 bad guys that came onto the plane, tried to hijack it, and they threw a grenade in the aisle, and one of the passengers picked up the grenade and threw it in back of the plane where it blew up. Well, plane gets stormed, all the bad guys died, all the good guys lived. But what makes this kind of remarkable was Raytheon ended up buying this plane from Ethiopian Airlines, and they made it part of the Star Wars program that Ronald Reagan signed in. Remember the whole Star Wars program? Yeah. So I had this they put this big like satellite door in it, and we couldn't even really find out exactly what it did. But what a story. You know, this one plane, this Boeing 720. So that's one, it's always kind of fun to tell. Well, this is kind of fun one. This is one that we were speaking about EAA. We just did a tag with the EAA for AirVenture. This is off the Berlin Express. A very, very short run. We only made 240 of these, and they dropped about 100 of them online last week, and they sold out within minutes. I'm hoping you'll be able to find them in the bookstore, or not bookstore, the gift stores there. I guarantee you they're going to go pretty quick. And these are what the collectors love: low edition series where they sell out immediately, and you know, then they go up in value.
Wow.
Another fun one. I mean, what we even get involved with. This is kind of cool. This is the mobile launch platform from NASA. This came from Cape Canaveral. This is the MLP2, and we literally cut that tail service mast off, which was what was connected to the space shuttle, and that is now sitting in the Mojave Desert. We cut it off and shipped it to Mojave, where we were able to torch it up in pieces, and we basically created an MLP plane tag, which is more like a paperweight, and stuck it on an aluminum card here, and that is pretty special.
So how do you get access to something like a NASA part of an MLP like that?
Well, I'd love to take all the credit, but I can't. You know, we have one, and I got to give them a shout out. We have our Tagnetics. There's fan clubs out there that set up that people who collect these. And I had a couple of some of our biggest fans and supporters who reached out to me that heard about the MLP being demoed and put me front and center with the contractor who was doing it. And that was something that was pretty incredible, and it was the thanks to people who basically help support the company and believe what we're doing. Versus, that's a pretty broad question. You know, we work with a lot of people who do teardowns, right? We gotta, you know, we're getting teardowns out of Mojave, Roswell, Victorville, San Bernardino. Greenwood, Mississippi, Alabama. I mean, commercial aviation, and I might have touched on this earlier, it's readily available to us, right? They're taking off all these aircraft. They're not fuel efficient anymore. You're seeing them just dump. I mean, look, I was out in Greenwood, Mississippi, and there was a whole fleet of A320s out there, right? In the middle of nowhere, because they had to find a place to park these planes, because they're introducing all these new fuel efficient planes, and they're trying to find places to park all these old planes versus more special ones. Let me give you another one. All right, how cool is this? This is the Japanese Zero. This was pulled from the Marshall Islands. A gentleman named John Sterling went and traded a tractor for it. I guess he got 2 of them. And they pulled it from the Marshall Islands, and a company called Legend Flyers up in Washington had been restoring it for the last 8 years. And they invited us up. When they do a restoration like this, Jeff, basically, the first thing that goes is all the skins, right? They can't use the skins. What they do is they'll use the skins, they'll use them as patterns, they'll put new aluminum skins, and just as I thought, they kept all the old vintage skins. Now, a lot of these old timers did, but the B-17s, the B-25s, the P-51s, we're working with people who are actually restoring these aircraft. And it's kind of been a win-win for everybody. We go in there and say, hey, look, let's figure out a way to make this work for everybody. We have a pretty good audience. They're gonna want to get a Helldiver or a P-61 and own a piece of aviation history, and let's give back to the museum. Right. Let's give back to the people who are restoring it. And
yeah,
so it's been a
winning
like
a Zero. That's crazy rare.
Yeah, right. I was so honored. I mean, I couldn't believe we went up to Washington, and I literally almost had a tear in my eye when I saw the material, and they were so excited for PlaneTags. They're like, look, what are we going to do with it, right? Which is true. What are they going to do with it? It's just going to sit in their hangar. So we did a deal with them where it's a win-win. We want it to be beneficial for everyone. Not only is it beneficial for them, beneficial for us, but more importantly, it's beneficial to the people who are collecting them, because now they get to own a piece of aviation history, something so rare as the Japanese Zero. So yeah, in fact, I got an email from a museum in Japan, just like, what are you doing with that? That's sacred material. You need to give us all the material. I'm like, PlaneTags.
Yikes.
Yeah. So, but they all tell a story. We've done darn near 170 different aircraft. I kind of lose track. We do big runs for airlines like American Airlines, Delta, where this is great. This is the collection. I love the collection, right?
Yep.
But when we're dealing with American Airlines or Delta or some of the others, they order them by the tens of thousands, which is kind of a big deal, which is
like how do you handle volume for something like that? I mean, here's a Delta.
Yes.
I mean, that you have cannibalized for PlaneTags. What? Yeah. That's a massive effort.
Right. But you know what that one was? That was a puzzle we did for Delta Airlines, and that was pretty unique. That was for the profit sharing program back in like 2019. There you go, where we made a puzzle. So we made 92,500 puzzle pieces. And if you zoom in, Jeff, you can actually see the pieces of the puzzle on that. What they did is they originally wanted me to laser etch every single one of them. I'm like, there's no way. So we literally went and we stamped them, and we had to make sure they're all interlocking. And this was a 45-foot by 24-foot puzzle that they laid on the ground, and they brought a muralist in that painted over it, and every piece of the puzzle represented an employee. So that we did in 6 weeks. That was an incredible job.
And what was it like assembling the puzzle?
We did not have to do that. But I did go out. Yvonne and I, my partner, we did go out and celebrate with them. But they had their people put the puzzle together. I just had to make sure the plane was cut up and stamped and got it out to them.
That's insane. That is truly amazing. How many people do you have there? How do you handle something with 92,000 parts?
But yeah, we have about 26 here rotating. We do a lot of air shows now. It's something that we haven't really talked about, but we're doing 15 air shows this season. And so When we get a big job like that in, to answer your question though, like, you know, we did a run for American Airlines. We did 150,000 plane tags for American Airlines. They retired the MD-80, and so we went and tagged the MD-80 for all their employees. That's a big assembly line. I mean, we have 4 state-of-the-art lasers. We have a full laser department here that's running almost 24 hours a day. In fact, right now, I heard the machines going off. We got a crew back there working right now, and it's after hours. So our crew will be here all night lasering tags. When we have a big run, I mean, we're kind of set up for big runs. We'll just have tables set up in the back where, you know, ladies will come in and do all the assembly. But it is a process. But again, that's great work. You're talking a lot of tags. It's big money. This is where the passion's at. This is 100% where my heart is you know, documenting aviation history, learning about all these planes. I thought I knew a lot about planes, Jeff. When I had MotoArt and we were doing this crazy TV show and this and that, you know, I could talk myself out of an argument. You know, I thought I knew everything, but it wasn't until I started PlaneTags I realized I knew nothing about aviation. And there's just so much incredible aviation history out there. I'm like a little kid that just absorbs it every 2 weeks, launching a brand new product. You know, this week, you know, for EAA, I mean, not for EAA, for Oshkosh, we're debuting Piper. We partnered with Piper. So we have a tri-pack of Piper coming out. We got the PA30, PA28, and the PA36 coming out this Thursday in time for Oshkosh.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. So we will see you out at AirVenture at Oshkosh next week then.
Yes, let me give myself a plug. One, anyone comes up to the booth, I think we're just going to do a 15% discount for anyone that comes to the booth. As long as you leave us your email, we'll have a little email set up. We're going to give you 15% off any order. And we're in Hangar B, and we're in booth 2022 and 2023 inside the hangar. So please come up and say hi to us. Get your 15% discount. We'll have maybe 100 different aircraft to look at. There's a lot to absorb, but come out and say hi to us.
Awesome, absolutely awesome. Well, Dave, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to join us. And it's just fascinating. Can't wait to see you out there next week.
Thank you, Jeff. I look forward to seeing you too.
You have a great night.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks. And to all of you, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to join us here again on SocialFlight Live. As we said earlier, next week we are off. No live show next week, but there'll be plenty of content coming out of AirVenture as I will be on the ground there with Jake and Ben walking the grounds, making videos. We'll be, again, at our partners. So if you're going to be there at the show, be sure to go to any of the folks that are here on this sign behind me and ask for us. We'll be around, and if we bump into you and we still have some stuff in our bag, then you will be able to snag some swag at AirVenture, and we'd love to meet you. Absolutely love to meet all of you folks, talk about things. It keeps us in touch and lets us know what you want to see, who you want to see come on the show next, what other kinds of things you want us to focus on. And of course, there's more coming out with our T51D Mustang build behind me. Lots of new stuff coming. We just launched another video as we did things on that. We put in McFarlane control cables that have been engraved. Lots of fun with that, and we've got just some really cool stuff coming. And of course, a very big episode that'll be coming up when this guy moves out of our living room and dining room here near Boston in Massachusetts. Again, to all of you, thanks so much for taking time out of your evening. It is greatly appreciated. We're here to support you and General Aviation, and I wish all of you blue skies.